Welcome to Coffee with Kish. Ooh, yeah. So I'm Kish, and I'm here to geek out with you on the topic of Mormonism. Mormonism is an absolutely fascinating topic. It's a religion that started in 1820s in the 1820s in upstate New York, and today it has millions of members around the globe. But it kind of remains outside of the mainstream, even though it's as American as apple pie, and its members are very patriotic, and in the United States, very patriotic Americans. But because its theology is different, and because it has some secret practices like its temple ceremonies, it's outside of the mainstream, and it attracts, you might say, a lot of negative attention. But I'm not here to proselytize you to agree with the church or join the LDS Church, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, or to push you out of it. Instead, I'm just here to geek out. I find the topic infinitely interesting, fascinating. It's something that it's easy to obsess over. It's just really, really wild. And it's really tied up in current daily events. There are lots of powerful Mormons in politics in the United States and around the world, and people are very passionate about the topic. They think about its controversial past with practices like polygamy, where Mormon men married more than one wife. In fact, some had dozens of wives, particularly in the leadership of the church. That doesn't happen these days, but that memory still attracts a lot of attention, and I would say negative attention. So I'm here with you to geek out about Mormonism. I'm not here to proselyte. I'm not here to convince you to join the LDS Church or any other branch of the Restoration, other Restoration churches out there. I'm also not here to criticize it. There are lots of other podcasts and blogs out there, YouTube channels that are going to take one point of view or the other. They're going to say Mormonism is the best thing since sliced bread, and you gotta love the teachings of the church and agree with the teachings of the church, and all the guys all the men and women who speak out against the church are liars and evil and terrible people. Or you could be one of those people who's like, well, Mormons are liars. You can't trust a thing they say. They only do what their leaders tell them. They're sheeple. There are these two sides that are always at it, always trying to convince you that their perspective about Mormonism is the correct one. And it's hard to be neutral in that situation, but that's what I'm going to try to do. Of course, you can't be perfectly neutral, right? You have your own perspective. I have my perspective, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about that perspective. So I grew up in the LDS Church, right? And I had a good experience overall, I would say. I mean, my family wasn't the happiest family out there, but we had plenty of good times, and we were in an area of the world or the United States where the church wasn't, the members weren't that numerous in the area. So my family was actually recruited out of inactivity back into activity to help start a branch, which is like really the smallest unit of the LDS Church. And so we were founding members of a branch in Virginia, and that's where I grew up, in this branch. And I think I was a teenager before this branch became a ward and then had its own building to meet in. For the longest time, we met in a rented school in Virginia, just this little elementary school. I've got great memories of meeting in that building. To me, I grew up going to church in a school, and when I went to church with one of my friends in his Presbyterian church in an actual church building, I was pretty excited. I thought, wow, this is the real thing. We're in an actual church building. So went to church for the longest time in this school. Went and did Mormon missionary service, the 2-year service. I did an English-speaking proselyting mission in the United States, and we can get into that in the future. And I came home and I went to the Mormon school, Brigham Young University in Provo, Utah, and I was there for a long time. I got a bachelor's degree, got a master's degree, met my spouse, and we got married in the Mormon temple in American Fork, Utah, and moved out into what we used to call, as Mormons used to call, the mission field, which meant outside of the Wasatch Front, outside of Mormon Central, into somewhere outside of that center. So we moved into the mission field and started our careers. I went into academia. My spouse started out in law, but then went into academia herself. And so here we are, living the academic life. And we were active in the LDS Church for a number of years. We started a family and thought at the time that we would be raising our family in the LDS Church. But then a lot of things happened. Changes came about that sort of disturbed us. Speaking for myself, I'm not going to speak for my spouse. When the church started fighting gay marriage, and that was kind of a turnoff for me. And I'm not here to get into politics or to push my perspective on you. All I can say is that in my experience, I found that upsetting. I wasn't really going along with it. And so what happened over time is I became inactive. Not 100%. Sometimes I would go back. There were stretches when I went back to the church, but I just personally had a problem with the church's politics surrounding marriage and the policies that went with it until, there's kind of a definite break for me with the November policy, it's called, where for a while children of gay parents were denied baptism, and I thought, that didn't work for me. And so even though I had been lightly attending church, I stopped. That said, I had so many good experiences growing up Mormon, and I would consider myself Mormon today. I wouldn't consider myself LDS because I'm not living the lifestyle of an LDS person, and I don't really intend to. Not that I think that, again, to borrow a line from Seinfeld, not that there's anything wrong with that. It's just not for me. At the same time, I love talking about Mormonism. I love meeting with people to discuss Mormonism. I like reading about Mormonism. I love the Mormon Studies crowd. And I think for me, the Mormon Studies crowd, the scholars, both scholars in academia and scholars outside of academia who are writing about Mormonism, speaking about Mormonism, thinking about Mormonism, I think they're my ideal crowd because they're so accepting, right? I mean, if I were to go to church today, or this coming Sunday, I would have to, think about keeping the rules that I haven't kept for a while, including what the Mormons call the word of wisdom, where you don't drink coffee and you don't drink alcohol and you don't smoke. I would have to think about that stuff, and I would be concerned that, if I weren't following the rules, then the people around me would judge me for that. And sure, they might judge me, some of them in the Mormon, some of those good people in the Mormon Studies community, they might judge me too, but the Mormon Studies community is such a lively mix of Mormons, ex-Mormons, people in other branches of the Restoration, and people completely outside of Mormonism, people who are sometimes affectionately called Nevermos. I mean, all of these people come together and they're fascinated about Mormonism, and I've loved that. That has been a big chunk of my experience as an adult, is mixing with this Mormon Studies community. Some of my dearest friends are in that community. I've sponsored little conferences on Zoom in that community, and I've fraternized, so to speak, with artists, people in all different branches of the Restoration, with polygamists, all kinds of wonderful people. And that excites me and energizes me. Mormonism is a fascinating topic. So I hope you'll come back here in subscribe to this channel so we can get into geeking out about Mormonism. You might not be a Mormon, it doesn't matter what you might be curious about Mormonism. You may want to know more about, hey, what's all that going on in that LDS temple that my friends visit, or what is it that makes Mormons? People say that Mormons aren't Christians, or what are some of the geeky cool things that authors are writing? Not authors who are writing about Mormonism, who may believe in it, may not believe in it, may just be interested scholars who want to explore parts of it. I'm all about that, and that's what I'm here to do with you. I'd like to be one of the many sources from, with whom you sit and mix and geek out and have a great time. So welcome to Coffee with Kish, and I look forward to seeing you again, I hope.